At that time, then I realized that the opportunities for my future were very limited in occupational therapy, and salaries were limited. And being ambitious, I said, no, something I must do. And there came Duffy. So I said, new field. And then I told Dr. Duffy that if I can get a chance, I would like to do this. But finances, I can't manage because it's expensive to go to USA, take leave here, but you can't resign and go. So he says, okay, we will see if any university can give. The university with which I'm attached, I will also find out. He left. And that was in 1960 February. In the month of April, I got a letter from US agency, which was in this consulate here, and Dr. Reddick's signature as director. You are required to come for an interview for Fulbright scholarship in the field of audiology and speech pathology, as recommended by the scholar who had come here under Fulbright, Dr. John Duffy. I said, wow, this is something, you know. But then my wife was pregnant, our first child was expected. I was supposed to leave in August. And she was due sometime end of July or beginning of August. And that is how dilemma started. But I went for the interview, I got selected, everything happened. And then came the crucial time, government leave. Somehow convinced Mrs. Nimkar also, because she was not very happy about it, because I was leaving the occupational therapy school, and at that time the BSc occupational therapy proposal had come into Senate of the university. And I told that will be done because the person under me, one Mr. Kulkarni, and this lady, Miss Dallery, I said they will take care. Anyhow, she got the dean convinced. Dean recommended my case to the health ministry of Maharashtra government, and then I talked to this minister. At that time, he had become the chief minister. Health minister who invited me to Nagpur had become chief minister. So I met him and I said, sir, this is what it is, and I'm getting this opportunity, and we can start for the first in India. The speech and hearing services and our rehabilitation, 3 services will be there. And because I was making artificial limbs and things when I was here in Mumbai, I caught hold of one cobbler who was sitting outside the main entrance of the hospital. I said, will you be able to make shoes? He says, sir. Then 2 paraplegics, I trained them on smithy work, iron smithing, to shape the rods and things for calipers and all that. And as a side this thing, and they would also get money then, you know, because they'll make for it. Anyway, that is, I don't want to go into those details, that will make a history. But so I convinced him also. He says, yes, आप जा सकते हो, क्यों नहीं? Secretary को बुलाया, say issue the letter to health ministry, issue the letter to whatever, you know, dean and everybody, that he should be given leave for 3 years. And that was special leave under this, because then I said, if I'll go for my doctorate. I left in August. 10 days before that, my son was born. So I flew 3 days before I boarded the ship to see my wife and my child. He was just 8 days or so. And that is how I left. USA, I stayed for my teacher, who was the chairman of the department, was late Professor Dr. Robert West. Robert West was the pioneer of speech path in USA. He and Lee Travis, again another name in speech path. In USA, they were really very well known, even today also. He was my chief man to report to. And under him, the famous Dr. Bloodstein, the stuttering man. Bloodstein was student of Johnson. Johnson and Van Rapper were the colleagues. But then, at that time, I didn't know really anything about his background in stuttering of Bloodstein. But I was so happy with Dr. West, because West, an organicist, he believed in organic, components of speech and language disorders, including this, and he had specialization in voice and aphasia. And then I told him about how I got into this from occupational therapy and how strong was my background in anatomy, physiology, and medical sciences because of so many lectures and the practicals. So he was quite impressed and we gelled. He says, evenings from next month, you will work in my clinic after your lectures in the college. His clinic was in the college only in our department. You will work from 4:30 to 6:30, and when I see the patients, you will take your notes on the questions and answers that I ask and the diagnostic work and examinations and whatever I tell you. And you have to give me next day morning the typed report of each patient that I'll be seeing. I said, okay. Everything was in a, God-sent opportunity. And Robert West is a famous name in the United States. So why should I miss this opportunity? Everybody was surprised. My classmates, he said, Ramesh, are you serious? I said, yes. But you have not yet cleared all the courses. I said, I will clear. I'm taking the courses. So for 1 full year, I was in his clinic. He taught me how to do the laryngeal examination, how to do the aphasia evaluations. And for stuttering, he said, stuttering is a type of epilepsy. He used to call it pycnolepsy. And he said, it is very small, minor seizures while person talks. And we have to go on that. And then he was also the colleague of Robert and Penfield's. They were well-known neurosurgeons who had written a book on brain. If you ever get it, then the brain book is that thick. It was giving complete description of brain surgeries they did, stimulated different areas and with the patient awake, and how the localization theory was established by these two people. And Robert West was also part of that thing. So he taught me lots of things on this, and that is how I started my PhD thesis in audiology with Dr. Duffy as my guide. And Dr. West was my supervisor as a chairman, and that is how we started. I had selected the topic on the difference in the thresholds with pure tones in cases with tinnitus, with pulse tone and continuous tone. The difference that you may get in terms of the thresholds, whether there will be significant changes or not. And if so, can that be used as a part of diagnosis of early symptoms of tinnitus? I was supposed to do 100 cases in 2.5 years. And Dr. West and Dr. Duffy guided me in selection of patients and all that. Unfortunately, what happened? This was 1961 August, and in 1962 September, I suddenly got a long distance telephone call from Mumbai, from the Director of Health Services, who was known at that time Surgeon General, that you will have to come back. I said, sir, but I am halfway in my PhD and I got 3 years scholarship. He says, sorry, but right now I can't talk to you. I'll make a call later and tell you the reason. I said, but how can I convince my people? He said that that's your job. And you will get the government letter to join on 1st of March 1963. Now September 62 and March 1st 63, I went to my chairman. I was broken down completely. I said, sir, this is what it is. And because I was a Fulbright scholar, everything was by the State Department. So this is how they had to write to talk to State Department. Ultimately, they say, what we will do, we'll convert your thesis with 20 cases into masters, and we do your masters. That is how I could not finish my PhD. I finished my masters day and night, writing my thesis, typing it out myself, and that is where I started smoking, which I had never done in my life. Stress was so much because daytime lectures and our postgraduate lectures were from 7 to 10 in the evening at night. So as soon as that was over, I used to go to library, which used to be open up to 2 o'clock in the morning. In those days, one of the best libraries that I've seen. And that is what I finished, and then, finished my I finished my Viva 2 days before my wedding anniversary day in February, that was 18th February. I landed in Mumbai. State Department gave me Maco's 2-channel from the side control, for volume and this thing, audiometer, which was flown from the factory at the New York airport and directly put into the luggage with the letters from State Department to our customs and everybody. And all the papers they handed over in my plane. I didn't know anything about it. They said, this is what it is, and this is a letter, you read it, and then you can take this equipment which is to be given, and 10 hearing aids. Out of that, 2 were BTEs and the rest were pocket aids of Zenith. Some of the best hearing aids, pocket aids that I have ever seen. And then I read the letter and said, this is gift from State Department. And because all throughout you have stood with A+ in your exams, wow, and you have completed your masters with A+. So we decided that we'll give you something that you can take back to India and stuck with the speech and hearing. So that's how I landed in Bombay. I joined 1st of March, and then I joined as Director of Occupational Therapy. But My Surgeon General had rang up as per his listing my residence. In those days, there were no mobiles or anything, and long distance calls. Government calls were getting priority in India. So from Bombay, he got the priority, and I got the call at my residence at 11 o'clock night when I was typing my thesis. You see, he said that there is a politics going on in your department, and your assistant, whom you have put in charge as acting director, he's trying to get himself appointed. And of course, we can't do that unless you and until you have come. But we realize that if you delay in coming, there would be problems. And that is how he said, I'm glad you have decided to come back. Came back, I saw whole situation, and I thanked my stars that I came back. But what next? So, in the month of April, I joined 1st March. In the second week of March of 1963, I opened the audiometer and called the dean and assistant and we said, the first speech and hearing clinic in India. At that time, I didn't know about Ratna. I didn't know anything about Mumbai also. Ratna had already come by that time. So recently we had some exchange of chat on our audiology, this thing that they have made in a speech and hearing group. And so it started with that. And I said, sir, now we have to put up the proposal to start a speech and hearing school. In the meantime, what had happened in 62, towards the end of 62, India-China war was over. And we had 98,000 soldiers who needed rehabilitation. And we didn't have the facilities. So a meeting was called by United Nations, UNICEF, WHO, and ILO, a joint meeting. And during that time, doing audiology and speech, I was also doing my clinical work in aphasia under a very well-known person. She was one Martha Sarno Taylor. Excellent in her work in Bellevue Medical Center, which was one of the, best hospitals and rehab centers in USA. And during the time that I was going there, I also got an opportunity to attend for a couple of hours in the artificial limb centers under one of the very well-known artificial limb engineer. So I took that as a hobby, but after those hours there, during that time, this one, John Kennedy's father, President Jack Kennedy's father, was admitted after stroke. And the director of the institute, Bellevue Medical Center, was Dr. Howard Rusk. And he was the nephew of Dean Rusk, who was the Secretary of State. So, you see, the Fulbright Foundation and Fulbright Scholarship is a very big thing in the United States. So they may go out of the way to introduce the scholars under that. It was in those days a PL40 with India. So I had that occasion of shaking hands and, it was great anyway. So what happened was that I finished all that and then I came back and I was invited to this special meeting in December or November of 1962. Mrs. Gandhi, at that time she was not the Prime Minister. Nehru was the Prime Minister and she was just one of the Gandhian family, but very, how Nehru's family has been in the politics. She was sent to USA to meet the health authorities and work out some program for rehabilitation centers for the sake of the soldiers, artificial limbs, injuries, paralysis, you just name it, and that was there. So at that meeting, I was one of the invitees. Again, came in touch with so many people, and I told them about the facilities we had developed in Nagpur, OT, PT, and I was going to start the speech and hearing, and that I had trained some paraplegics for, uh, making the artificial appliances for polio cases, for amputees and all that, and that a small workshop was already developed. But we didn't have finance, so we had not been able to upgrade or bring in the qualified people. So they said they are appointing a panel of 3 doctors to immediately visit India and visit Chennai, Bombay, Patna, Lucknow, and Nagpur they added, because Nagpur was not on the list anywhere. So I said that I want the panel to come and see our facilities, and it's in central India and we'll be able to do a lot of things. They agreed, and that's how the panel came to India in my absence. They saw all the facilities there, and in the report that they gave, Nagpur became number 2 on the list of centers to be developed for this purpose, and that I should be made the director of the rehabilitation center and given the full listing looking at the background. In OT and artificial limbs that I was, work I was doing under this guy, and speech and hearing. And they had a government, between Government of India, Government of Maharashtra, and UNICEF and these agencies through WHO, memorandum of understanding, and a commitment, signed commitment that I will take over as a director and that all facilities to be given. And for Nagpur, they sanctioned, WHO sanctioned a grant for one of the latest artificial limb center workshop. Some German lathes and German equipment, engineering, which was so precision thing, which would be a dream, for anybody who wants to do this. They, in those days, as far as I recollect, they had sanctioned $6.5 lakh for setting up speech hearing, upgrading OTPT, and starting the new thing under my supervision. So I was very happy. I came back, we started working on it, and then my post was to be upgraded to class 1 as a director as per the agreement. And that is where problem came up and my thing was stopped. They said, no, you will be the director, but we will not give it class 1. I resigned. I informed WHO and everybody that this being the reason I'm out. I resigned because it's a matter of my career and commitments that government had given. That is how life became totally in speech and hearing. And then I was invited by the Dean of Nair Hospital and late Dr. Hiranandani to come to Bombay in Nair Hospital, where he was keen to start audiology and speech therapy. 1965, that is how I resigned from my OT career. I came to Nair Hospital as a superintendent, my designation, started audiology and speech therapy, started working on the thing of the curriculum. When they had already started, they were going to start masters straight away in Mysore with Ratna. Ratna has given the history of how he also came to, he was in Bombay and he was also then with SO special officer on duty with the ministry, and then he came to Hyderabad. I mean, he came to Mysore, and all that thing was started, but there had no staff. Mrs. Menon was the only one. So I started in Bombay. I was given full freedom, separate budget. I had the same facilities and same privilege as I had in Nagpur when I started OT. So that is how we got the new department set up in 6 months' time with sound treated rooms and everything. Whatever was there was completely demolished in a huge hall, and we started with all this. That is how, in 1966, we started the first batch of 2-year diploma with 6 months of internship after 2 years in audiology and speech. And I also submitted the proposal for BSc in audiology and speech. But it was held up because OTPT, whose proposal was lying since 1958, when I had left KEM and gone to Nagpur. So they came in the way that if we so many years we are waiting, how can you give speech and audiology not known to anybody, a degree program? So I said, why not do one thing? Let us have OTPT also BSc, and we will have our BSc. So we came to understanding, and that is how in 1967 the BSc was approved, and we started the first batch. Before that, 2 batches of diploma were already taken, so we had to finish them, and this was the additional thing. And audiology and speech pathology BSc degree, first degree program, as per the university requirements. Though Mysore was the master's, but it was with any background at the bachelor's level. You may be a BSc, you may be BA, you may be B.Ed. It was not that they had to be with the science background. In our case in Bombay, this thing, it was same qualification as for medical admissions. And that is how our curriculum was heavily loaded in the first year with all the medical basic sciences, anatomy, physiology, pathology, and starting off towards the end of the year, medical subjects. In the second year, we had medical subjects, lectures, 35 lectures in each of medicine, surgery, pediatrics, and neurology, psychiatry. So students from NIR had as much background in medical listings as we had in occupational therapy. On the other hand, in Mysore, these subjects were not given that much importance because the whole approach in Mysore this thing was on functional aspect. And I'm sure probably you were not there at that time. And ours was that it's a medical treatment, therefore basic subjects and in basic sciences and medical lectures were necessary to understand speech, language, and audiology conditions. But then from 68, I was invited to go to Mysore for lectures in these subjects, a speech path. I lectured on development, speech and language development, articulation problems, aphasia, and voice. So, late Mr. Manohar, Pratibha Karant, and all these people in the first batch, and I used to go, stay there for 2 or 3 days depending, and from morning till evening number of lectures, interact with the students, tell them about the basic sciences which they didn't have at that time, separate lectures in anatomy, physiology or anything. So I had to teach them in order to make them understand what the voice disorders and how, what is aphasia and how the human brain worked on it. And that is where my Dr. West, this thing was, and stuttering, which Dr. Bloodstein's teaching courses had made me understand it properly. So this is how, you see, our training program started. And by 1969, 69-70, the first batch of BSc came from Bombay, Nair Hospital, and masters from Mysore. And I had protested about it. You cannot have direct masters because students had no background of science subjects. How can you teach masters with this? So myself and Ratna, we used to have a lot of arguments. But then ultimately, they made the changes. They started BSc level and then MSc. And of course, then it is the history and how institute came up. Everybody knows how we came up to a point, and then again the politics came in the picture. And because we became very popular as a department for our work as well as the facilities in the department. Plus, I used to literally sell audiology and speech by addressing various conferences of neurology, of dental, pediatrics, and I used to visit the hospitals to make people aware, doctors and everybody. And I had excellent rapport with top ENT surgeons in India at workshops which are being held by Dr. Kapoor, about which Ratna has said in details, you see. So that is how, we got this started in the ENT. Everybody wanted to start there in Mumbai, the audiology department. But then that popularity affected my career. I was made the professor and head of the department as soon as the BSc thing came in. So as a full-time professor, I was there. And one morning I got the letter that the ENT surgeon, assistant professor, would take over as the head of the audiology and speech, and that I can work under him. I said, no, I will not work under ENT. Audiology and speech has been independent for so many years. And suddenly, overnight, you put it under this thing. So in 75, I resigned. By that time, I joined, with permission of the authorities, Jaslok Hospital, 72. And I joined Nanavati Hospital, also in 72. Nanavati Hospital, I resigned in 2016 after more than 42 years, and we developed one of the top rated audiology department, which became the final recognized clinic for pilot trainees, for jet pilots, civil, as well as for the jet pilots in Air Force, to come for the final certification for audiometry with the audiological reports and testing reports from Nair. So that is how we see. And we had one of the top. And I got the latest equipment in 2008 with 850 square feet area of audiology department with cabins and things, with 3 sound treated rooms and cabins for speech therapy, central air conditioning. Entire equipment, Bera, OE, ASSR, 2-channel audiometers, free field, impedance, doctor speech, all this equipment fully donated, gifted by Ritik Roshan. Ritik was my patient earlier, and his family, his grandmother was my patient for hearing. He gave this in the memory of his grandmother, and that's how the plaque was there. I hope it is still there. Iravati Roshan Speech and Hearing. And I left in 16. And so this is how. And then in 72 to 95, I was with Jaslok and Nanavati both. And then Jaslok, I resigned. because my wife had cancer and it was difficult to manage. And here I said, I will settle down in my western suburbs. For certain reasons, I was totally kept out of teaching. It's another story, but I don't want to go into that past. But teaching, which was my flair, I wanted with my students to teach them, even if I was not, on the academic stuff. I'd offered my services totally free to the dean at that time. So I went into private practice. And always I had a concept that whatever you do in a private setup will always flourish compared to any government thing. And that is how BMC thing came up, and that I had to leave under the circumstances about which I mentioned. But then I had Nanavati in my mind. Nanavati hospital people, they gave me strong support. They said, make one of the best. It was the private hospital. This is what it was. I just forgot to mention, 1973, I was invited to become a Rotarian, a Rotary Club of Bombay West, which was the second Rotary Club in Mumbai. First one was the Rotary Club of Bombay, and then we became the second. I joined on one condition, that I will bring certain amount of money, and that amount the club will have to match and start the classes for hearing impaired under Rotary in the western suburbs, because we had not a single class even for the hearing handicapped. In those days they were called deaf. So no classes for deaf children. So all the way from Bandra up to Borivali, nothing. On the east side, there were some schools which were old style with gestures and nothing else. They agreed. So I brought from a medical couple, and then they owned a big theatre called Roxy in Mumbai. If you had stayed in Mumbai, you would know where Roxy was, near Opera House. So that Javeri family gave 15,000 rupees, and the club Rotary Trust matched with another 15,000, and we started one class with 9 children and one special educator, school for hearing impaired, under Rotary. And in 76, we got government recognition. In 78, we got a big plot of land in a very, very prestigious area of western suburbs called Juhu Ville Parlour scheme. And there we got one plot which was 20,000 square feet, earmarked only for the educational institution, not commercial. So we got it on lease, and from 9 children by 76, we had 40, and by the time we shifted in our new school building with ground floor plus 1 floor, and it was specially designed, keeping in mind the schools for the hearing impaired in different countries. And the architect sat with me and we worked out. So ground floor was administration block on one side, audiology on one side. And then the first one at what you call the different levels. So that is how today it is 4-story structure. And also started in 2002, the Cochlear Implant Training Center. I was founder and honorary director from 73 June till 1st July 2020. I hang my boots 1st of July this year after 47 years. And of course, in 2002, That means after 18 years of cochlear implant center in our own building, and such a great satisfaction. It was really, I think, and we named it as Shruti School, not a school for deaf or anything. It was, our major donor was an industrialist who had his own tobacco factory called Golden Tobacco, Panama cigarettes. You guys who used to smoke would know Taj and Panama cigarettes. They were the only Indian cigarette company. And their owners, the three brothers, family thing, they donated 2.5 lakhs. I got from Government of India, Ministry of Health, 4.5 lakhs. 2 lakhs, 2.5 lakhs towards the building and 2 lakhs for the equipment and furniture. And that's how we got our own building in this, one of the best places called Chandan Cinema, right behind that. And with God's grace, funds came in. And today it is 4-story plus hall. And we have in the Cochlear Implant Rehabilitation Center, we have trained so far more than 300 children with cochlear implants. We had a special project of cochlear implants under the Rotary, where 50 lakhs was a donation from another industrialist called Pidilite Industries, who are manufacturing Fevicol, very well-known brand. And they had a grandchild who was deaf. I diagnosed when she was 13 months old, advised them to go to USA for cochlear implant. So after 6 months of training in that 13-month of child, the family was fully involved, I tell you, never seen such a family. And she, Jessica, became the first child from my practice get operated in House Institute with 8-channel AB, now AB. I think it was in those days, it was a different company, Bionics or something. And but it was House's original baby. And in that hospital, she was operated. She is today in a very reputed university in USA. So that is how the cochlear implant thing started, and we had Dr. Kirtane, and then of course it's history. But the education for the hearing impaired, I was instrumental in starting 6 other schools for the deaf children in Maharashtra. I had done 36 camps, seen more than 15,000 children in these camps over a period of 4 years in 69, 70 up to 74, 75. And all those schools are flourishing today. So that is my contribution, small contribution in the area of rehabilitation of the handicapped, hearing handicapped. And yes, great period. And being always believer in private enterprise, I started my own practice along with the attachment to 2 hospitals, where I was responsible for setting up modern departments with enough staff. Some of the staff in my Nanavati are the girls who are working with me in my private clinic for 2-3 years. And then I took them there. So they have all learned certain ethical factors, certain professional behavior, thinking beyond just the theory, and learning to apply the knowledge to develop their own programs. So this is how, you see, and on the other side, started Indian Speech and Hearing Association. But I worked, myself and Ratna were working together at Aish till the new building. I was going there for lectures when that this thing was in the Maharaja College building. The building which was originally a college and then different classrooms and then temporary setup until their own building came up. So till that time I was going regularly for lectures and I had so many of those who are now big names, you see. And I'm proud of some of my past students. We had really, myself and Ratna have worked very hard. And he did lots of camps in Karnataka and down south. I did so many camps in Maharashtra, more than 35 camps, 2 days each, from morning 8:30 to 10 o'clock night, with the ENTs, with the Rotary, with the Lion, with the Round Table. And everywhere something or the other came up after these camps. So I had to do the professional work. I had to literally sell the profession to ENTs, pediatrician, neurologists. And I had to do more selling through these camps, make it popular, make people understand that there is definite cure for the problems in speech and also great help available for the children with hearing impairment or even adults. So life, I have nothing to complain except that I was prevented from teaching when I left Nair. Otherwise, I'm sure I would have done better job with subsequent groups. But then I got the satisfaction with the interns that were coming from Nair. Each batch of 10, they would come in rotation for one month. Now, of course, it has come down to 3 weeks or 2 weeks, but intensive program. So they also got they learned a lot of new things which they had missed. And but Nair has also very efficient staff. So those teachers are dedicated, very well informed. So from that point of view, the audiology is a very strong department there. Speech path also, but with more and more, I guess, doctorate staff coming in that setup, program will be a lot more strengthened than what it is now, you see. It makes a difference. So today I can say, yes, the change of profession from occupational therapy to speech and hearing, I have no regrets. At the same time, I do miss occupational therapy in certain ways, but then I had that opportunity to use my occupational therapy knowledge and techniques that I had learned with cases like in stroke cases. And then I developed specialization myself, self-learned through books and reading on swallowing therapy. And in Cheslok Hospital, our neurophysician, late Dr. Wadia, he was a big name in neurology. He saw a couple of cases which I treated for swallowing problems with stroke, and he was surprised. He said, "How do you do it?" I said, "Sir, it's a technique. If we get more cases, we will also help." That's how I used to do swallowing therapy. In 22 years, I don't remember the count of number of swallowing cases I must have seen. Post-operative as well as strokes following cerebral injuries, you see, in bleeding, etc. And for some time, I had a colleague called Vijay Shah. He was an audiologist. He was my colleague in Jaslok for some time. and then he went to USA. Unfortunately, he's no more. After going to USA, in a little time, he passed away. But I was so sorry when I heard about his demise because he was good in his ideology. But yes, his contribution I cannot ignore. And he was active in India, Isha also. So we used to hold conferences. Isha conference in Bombay we had done two. And then in 2001 again we did one. 2011, 2011 or a little earlier, another was done, but that was organized by Vijay. And then 2016, we celebrated 50 years of our school and Isha, both. We had a very good conference in Bombay in 2016, and we raised 3.5 million rupees from the conference, which has become the corpus in our Maharashtra branch. And is being used for research projects. We have come out with the first language and speech development test after 4.5 years of continuous work, hard work, by panel of 4 people: Aparna Nandurkar, Mrs. Maya Sanghi, Mrs. Wadia, and one more staff from Nair Hospital. And second one is under Vanaja's this thing on I think it is on speech discrimination in noise. Another test, Indianized tests we want, standardized tests. It costs money, but that money from Misha. Misha sponsored budget of 5 to 7 lakhs, which was the money which is being utilized from the Bombay conference, which we put in Misha as the corpus. So this is how, whichever way I could in my own ways, I pushed it and got things done. I think I have motivated so many people, go for private. Develop your own departments. Establish good rapport with the medical people. Never go for any cut practice, unethical practice. Today you will offer 10%, 20% to one surgeon or one ENT surgeon or one GP. Tomorrow somebody will go and give 25%. You will be out. I used a little not so likable comparison. I said, it is a game of prostitution. Who gives more money to the doctor? Gets patients. And what will you be left with? How much can you go? So develop, warm your seat. Doesn't matter. The longer you warm, better you will have your pockets warm. But shortcuts, of course, it's going on still in Bombay at least. I can't say about other places. Bombay, it is, cut practice is a known thing. But then we also see the results of it. So I have suffered because of some of my views. I'm very frank. I want to talk face to face. I don't do backbiting. If I find that something is wrong with you, I will come and tell you. Please, this is the reason, this is what I've observed. If I'm wrong, correct me. But if I am right, correct yourself. You will come up. And I think 85% it has worked very well. 15% of those who felt offended did whatever they wanted to, but I never took it up here. Chalta hai everywhere. You know, this type, you do have such people. But then you have to ignore. But then, as we always say, there are bound to be some rotten apple in a basket. So what? Throw them. You don't keep them. So the other apples remain healthy. And that's what I tell them. So worry not, whatever they do. Ignore. If you want to progress in your profession, in your life, whatever you do, your right ear to hear, left ear to throw it out. Nothing to stay in between. Good relations, irrespective of whatever they may be. Even if they stab you in your back, forgive them. But our objective in life is to help those who need our help, for which we are professionally trained. And so many of these people have really made the name. Even youngsters are also doing so well. Today, I feel so proud to see this younger generation coming out with such ideas and such training, self-trained as well as trained by some of the present day seniors, not our time. And whether it is swallowing, whether it is in audiology, whether it is voice, I can say we are no less than any of the best in the world. I don't say above or below, no, but we say we are equal to, in terms of instrumentation, in terms of academic work, in terms of clinical work. So myself and Ratna, we both are, even today, in regular contact. Ratna has retired from the professional work, or if at all he is doing very limited. His major interest after retirement was on dramatics and things. There he made a name, there he got the awards. I worked on the professional side, got lifetime achievement awards and so many awards. But my only award that I always cherished and will continue to cherish is the institutions that I helped start and develop. And that smile on those children and parents who came to me crying, but they left the institutions which we started with tears, but of joy, because their children are now, so many have become engineers, IIT, NDA, in computer science, in software, you name it. Architecture, engineer, B.Ed, they're bachelors in engineering. You see, so that they've gone up to masters and some are doing abroad PhDs. Even with the hearing problem, but they look at their speech, they are not sign language. I mean, whatever comes amongst themselves, that's a different thing which we can't change. But they are doing so well. And that is the biggest award. And yet, now, 2 days back, my birthday was there. The number of wishes that came from parents and those past students. I still have to go through my, mobile and computer and keep on reporting because it's such a large number. And I get a little emotional about it. But then I realize that yes, with the help of my colleagues and my friends, we could achieve something that was always in my mind, better than if I had been a neurosurgeon. So this is how life treated me. And I think today, at 86 that I have completed, I have no regrets. I am happy. And as I said, I don't worry what people talk about. Because we also must have made some mistakes somewhere. But in terms of ethics, professionalism, and honesty, and money. Never I have, left my path, even though it was unpopular with some people. So myself and Ratna, we can sit at ease and have nothing to say negative about anything. Take it as it comes. And you'll be happy. And I am happy. Still, I'm keeping myself busy. I do my consultations online. I learned it now because of COVID. So COVID taught me a new thing. One of my past students taught me. I got an audiologist, she did her master's, and she is working with me for last 20 years, Shabnam. Miss Shabnam Khan, 20 years, which is a rare thing to happen. Since 99, she's working with me in my clinic. So I want, and I encourage those who are working with me, go make your name bigger than your mentors, because then your mentors feel proud about it. Our training program certainly needs to change with the time. Still, there is not enough attention being paid to the basic sciences. Spending so many hours of lectures on electronics and acoustics and this and that, yes, it has its place. But you don't do it at the cost of the basic sciences. At the BSc level, why do you want them to get so much involved into electronics? Why do you want to get them involved so much into these subjects, psychology and things? Up to a point, whatever is needed at BS level. If everything you want to give at the BSc level, what do you offer at MSc level? And believe me, majority of the MScs who have done MSc, they all tell me, sir, I don't think we have learned much more or any more in our masters than what we had done under a lot of stress at our BS level. That if it was graded, we would have 2 years at MSc, we would have learned a lot more. But then there was paucity of teachers. But that is not there since last 10, 15 years. Our educational program has to be strengthened. RCI, to my mind, has not done justice. It is more controlled by the babus. I am very blunt about it. They have given no position of importance or recognition to the private practitioners in their committees. All teaching institution heads. I have nothing against those people. They are academicians. But in this country, how many will be academicians? Reading book, doing research, teaching, lecturing. It will not give them the same perspective as the private practitioners get in terms of variety of cases, in terms of variety of level of severity of problems, social backgrounds, and how they have developed their techniques in the absence of availability of equipment. Today, if I want to do any research, I'm not allowed, or I may not be allowed to go to these institutions, say, let me allow me to use the equipment for my research purpose at whatever cost you say. I couldn't do my PhD. People ask me, sir, why you didn't do your PhD? I said, I had to decide whether I want to be just an academician or I want to be a professional. to provide more opportunities for youngsters. And that is how I said we have more than 7,000 audiology and speech people in this country. Myself and Ratna, both, we worked hard and we sold this and we got the results. But RCI needs to be more, they must take more people from the profession of speech and hearing. In decision making, they must take more representation from prior practitioners, senior people who have a lot of experience all over the country. I wish that could happen. But Asia also needs to look at how ASHA developed, how ASHA took the help of politicians, got laws passed. Here the quacks are practicing and yet we are not able to get immediate action from RCI. We don't have any standing. Isha has no standing. Why? So I told them, many of you will be knowing good politicians. Use them to get this talent, and which helped me in a couple of other places. You have to be all-rounder. So I don't regret if I don't have PhD. As I told you, I had love marriage. When my wife was 1 year junior in occupational therapy, and I had about to finish my occupational therapy, and then we came closer. She was also an achiever in occupational therapy, very bright. She was very good in dramatics. So we got married in Nagpur. My wife was my biggest support in profession, in my work, socially also very active in Rotary. She became the president of the Inner Will, which is something like Rotary. She worked for so many institutions. And unfortunately, I lost her in '95 due to cancer. My son has settled in USA, New Jersey. He is with AstraZeneca Pharmacy. My daughter-in-law is a physical therapist. She did a doctorate in USA. My granddaughter is doing her PhD course in one of the universities in physiotherapy. My grandson is the elder of the two, and now he'll go for his law degree. But in the meantime, he has been hired by a very leading law company in Manhattan. My children are very well settled. My daughter is married in a very, very affluent family, very nice in-laws. Till '93, I was never in hearing aids. Okay. Because I decided that if I'm doing practice in audiology and speech, I will not deal with any hearing aids in terms of dispensing. I will prescribe, send to the companies, no discounts, no commissions. Now, my wife and my niece have started a company with the objective called Calypsonic. It was a combination of Latin American rhythm and sonic is sound. Okay. So Calypsonic by that name in '74. They worked together, then my niece settled in USA. So she became independently looking after this Calypsonic. But they provide at basic cost hearing aids to poor. Oh, nice. Those who could afford, she would give it at regular price. People used to ask for discounts. She used to tell them, look, financially, if you are not that good, you can't afford, okay, I will give something. But our policy in Calypsonic is to give discount, full discount even, to those who are economically underprivileged and can't afford. We don't want them to go without a hearing aid. This is how she worked on her own. But I never referred a case to Calypsonic, even though I was practicing with so much. I said, no, it's a matter of principle and I'll stick to it. We used to have at times, hot discussions. I said, no, Shah, I can't do that because I don't believe in it. And I don't want anybody to point finger at me that I am earning unethically. Even if you are doing it, sorry. In 92, she was diagnosed with this problem. And by that time, Calypsonic had really come up very well. So, for some time, my son was here. He was looking after. Then he went to USA. And my wife was doing it alone. And then in 2 years' time, she developed this major illness. Nobody to look after her. So then I had to, because she was literally, so please don't close it. So many people will suffer. And our policy has helped so many. Why don't you? Then that time I resigned from Just Look. I concentrated here. I promised her that yes, I will look after this, I will look after those underprivileged and develop it, and we will not close. And today, with God's grace and her blessings, Calypsonic is doing well. My life philosophy is enjoy what you have. Don't run after what you don't have. And professional work should be done to the extent it does not alienate you from the family. Because after all, we are working for whom? Not just your name and fame. You are working for family also. Give them time. You will never be unhappy. So life has to be like that. And I'm seeing that with Ratna. He's my icon. In spite of busy life, his family life has been so good. Even today. Good. Thank you very much. God bless you.